A tiger cub and a golden retriever are not supposed to become best friends. That's what everyone believed from the very beginning. One was born to become one of the most powerful hunters in the world, and the other was famous for being gentle, playful, and loyal. Everything about them suggested that they would stay far apart from each other. But sometimes life creates the most extraordinary stories when nobody is expecting them. It all started on a quiet morning when a tiny tiger cub arrived at an animal rescue center. The cub was small, frightened, and completely alone. His bright orange fur was covered with dirt, his little paws shook with every step, and although he tried to appear brave, it was obvious that he was terrified. The workers did everything they could to help him feel safe, but the cub refused to relax. He barely slept, he hardly ate, and every unfamiliar sound caused him to jump in fear. The rescuers worried that the loneliness was becoming too much for him. Then, only a few yards away, a golden retriever named Bailey was lying in the warm sunlight, wagging his tail as he watched the people around him. Bailey had spent his entire life making friends. He loved everyone he met, from children and birds to rabbits and goats. But nobody could have guessed who his next friend would be. One afternoon, the workers decided to let Bailey approach the tiger cub's enclosure. They moved carefully because nobody knew what would happen. The cub looked up immediately. His ears flattened against his head and he took a cautious step backward. Bailey simply sat down. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He didn't show any sign of fear. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and wagged his tail. The tiger cub stared at him in complete confusion. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. Then something remarkable happened. The cub took one slow step forward. Bailey remained perfectly calm. Another step followed. Then another. Soon the tiger cub was standing close enough to touch Bailey's nose. The workers held their breath. Bailey gently leaned forward and sniffed the tiny cub. The cub blinked once, sniffed Bailey's face in return, and suddenly the tension disappeared. It was as if both animals had silently agreed that neither of them intended to be enemies. Over the next few days, the impossible friendship continued to grow. Wherever Bailey went, the tiger cub followed. When Bailey stretched out in the sunshine, the cub curled up beside him. When Bailey ran across the grass, the cub ran after him as quickly as his little legs could carry him. At first, the workers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Tigers are predators. Golden retrievers are known for their friendly nature. Yet these two animals behaved as though they had known each other their entire lives. The cub, who had once been frightened by every sound, slowly became more confident. Bailey seemed to understand exactly what his new friend needed. When the cub became nervous, Bailey stayed close. When the cub became excited, Bailey joined his games. Day by day, the bond between them grew stronger. The funniest moments happened during playtime. The tiger cub would hide behind rocks and clumsily leap toward Bailey, convinced that he was the greatest hunter in the world. Bailey always acted surprised, even though he knew exactly what was coming. Sometimes the cub would gently pounce on Bailey's tail. Other times, Bailey would roll onto his back while the cub proudly climbed onto his stomach as though he had conquered a mighty beast. Everyone who saw them together smiled, but the most touching moments happened when the sun went down. As evening arrived and the air became cooler, Bailey would lie down to rest. Almost every time, the tiger cub would settle beside him, pressing his tiny body against the warm golden fur. Safe at last, the cub would close his eyes and fall asleep, and Bailey would remain there quietly, keeping watch over his unusual little friend. The workers eventually realized something important. Bailey had given the cub much more than companionship. He had given him confidence, comfort, and a sense of security when he needed it most. The lonely little tiger who had arrived scared and uncertain was slowly becoming stronger, and Bailey had been there for every step of the journey. As time passed, the tiger cub grew larger and stronger. His paws became bigger, his roar became louder, and the stripes across his fur became darker and more beautiful. But one thing never changed. Every morning he still searched for Bailey first. Every afternoon, they still played together. And every evening, they still rested side by side. Anyone who looked at them could see that this friendship had become something extraordinary. Their story reminds us that friendship doesn't always follow the rules we create. Sometimes the world surprises us. Sometimes kindness appears in unexpected places. And sometimes a powerful predator meets a gentle soul and discovers not an enemy, but a best friend. Long after the sun disappeared below the horizon, the tiger cub and the golden retriever lay together beneath the fading light, completely unaware that they had become the heroes of a story that people would remember for years to come. One was born to be a hunter. The other was born to be a companion. Yet somehow, against all expectations, they became a family.